My anxiety and depression started at a very young age. I was in a motorcycle accident with my father in 2003. Was sent home with prescription pills, and I started abusing them, started drinking on the weekends with friends down there that I just tried to fit in, you know, I tried to act cool. I graduated from Alliance in 2006. My bright idea is to get away from all that riffraff was to join the service. I left for basic training in 2006, but that didn't change anything, you know. I needed to fill my empty time when I wasn't working, and I turned to drugs and alcohol. My father worked with the Refuge of Hope. I stayed there, then the VA got me an apartment. My addiction was so bad, I just kept losing my places.
So when Walt came in, he was in transition from leading what would be considered a pretty typical normal life. And then his wife became addicted to cocaine. And then Walt, you know, shortly after, by the time he realized financially how she had kind of unraveled their situation. And, you know, I remember him saying at some point of like, you know, if it was that good that she wasted her whole life, I'm gonna try it once. So by the time he had ended up in shelter, he was probably over a year into his addiction. You know, when he ends up at the refuge is kind of the rock bottom for him initially, to be like, okay, I never imagined myself in this situation. I have kids. What do I do to begin to rebuild my life? I would say probably over the course of a year and a half total, you know, he figures that out, you know, and then from that point remains sober as he moves forward. And that's when you began to see him kind of see some of the successes where he becomes the building manager for this new building. And then when we hired him to be a fill-in supervisor initially, for him, that was his desire all along.
It turned to a black hole when my father passed away February 27, 2018. My dad was my best friend, you know? The only thing I knew to turn to was drugs and alcohol, because that was my new best friend to fill a void.
Made such an impact on hundreds and hundreds of guys that came through here. His home was the Refuge of Hope. So they asked us to host his funeral because Walt was so interconnected to the ministry. Clients coming off the street who were intoxicated but loved Walt and wanted to be there at his passing, and donors from Refuge of Hope also knew Walt, so they're there. So it's the entire cross-section of the community in that room, and we were singing Amazing Grace together, and I tell people, I don't know what heaven's like, but that's as close as I've ever been.
Walter, he's actually the third. Walter was older than his other two sisters that we had met, already out of the Army, involved in drugs, and with his own struggles.
It was all about me, like, why did this have to happen to me? And that went on from 2018 until 2022, until I was locked up in a state prison. I was being sentenced for 36 months with the judicial. The judge told me when I came home that he'd see me in a couple months because I would have screwed up, and I'm like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. And the next time he seen me was I was paying off my case and getting my case closed. When I came home, didn't have nowhere to turn. The following morning, I went back to the refuge, you know. I stayed at the refuge from July till October, got my own place. My life has been amazing.
A couple times helped him find housing, so he would get a voucher from the VA, so we would help find a landlord who would keep him housed for a while. Part of it was just helping him with the stability of having a place to sleep, you know, knowing that people cared for him. That's his main connection with Joanne, is like, it's a anchor person in his life that he knows cares about him. She's gonna pick up the phone every time he calls.
He helped me. When my dad died, Walter and another former resident, Frank, were by my side, and they were instrumental in helping me through that. They were by my side for weeks while they were residents here.
We met at a meeting and our lives grown more and more. And I told her from the first time when we started talking that God brought us together for a certain reason. There's a purpose that he brought us together, and he's the only one that knows it.
I was so excited when he told me that he was engaged. No way that I would miss sharing this time with him and seeing him so happy and moving forward with his life in a very positive way. I'm thrilled for him.
Today I'm sober, you know. I get to be married sober. I get to live a life free of an addiction, you know. I have a full-time job. I own my own house. I own multiple vehicles, you know. I'm a productive member of society today, and I couldn't do that if I wasn't sober or if I wasn't had the refuge in my life. Doing a lot of treasurer work and opening meetings, and I'm there for the newcomers that are coming in. I'm trying to give back what was freely given to me.
I want to continue to see Walter become healthy in many different ways. I know he's going to continue his medical health. I know he's going to continue on with his physical health as well. His addictions, he'll keep working all on that. And I want to see how God's going to work in his life from here on out. And when you receive that, you want to give that back. And that's exactly what he has been doing. I'm so proud of him.